All right, so let's get into this. For tonight's deep dive, we're looking at a case that is, well, it's just one of the most frustrating and illogical missing persons cases I think I've ever come across. The Yuba County Five.
It's a classic for a reason,
Mm.
and not a good one. It's this profound study
Okay.
in the failure of logic.
Exactly. It's a terrifying series of contradictions. We're talking about 5 young men from Yuba City, California. They vanish on the night of February 24th, 1978.
And that's the thing. The sources we're looking at, they lay out the facts, but the facts themselves feel like they belong to 5 different stories. 4 of the men are found dead months later. But the 5th, Gary Matias, he's just gone, never seen again.
So our mission today is really to dissect those impossible variables. We need to look at the men, Bill Sterling, Jack Hewitt, Ted Ware, Jack Madruga, and of course, Gary Matias.
And we really have to focus on the 2 things that make no sense. First, why they abandoned a perfectly good car.
And second, how one of them starved to death right next to a huge stockpile of food.
Yeah. And before we get into all the grim details, I think it's really important to set the scene. To understand who these men were. The sources make it so clear they were not, helpless. That's the easy narrative. But it's wrong.
That's a great point. These were able-bodied, fit young men, most of them in their early 20s. They were basketball players, driving back from a college game at Chico State.
And they were excited to get home. They had a big community match the next day that they were all supposed to play in.
So this was a planned trip, a simple, straightforward drive home.
Right. And competence was not an issue here. Jack Madruga, it was his car. A Mercury Montego he loved. He and Gary Matias both had driver's licenses, both had served in the military.
And what about Matias? I know his mental health is a big part of the story.
It is. He suffered from schizophrenia, but by all accounts, he was highly functional. He had a job, and as long as he was on his medication, he was managing his condition really well.
So making this, an hour-long drive from Chico to Yuba City was completely within their abilities.
Oh, absolutely.
And we know where they were last seen. It's incredibly specific.
Yep. A convenience store near the university. They stopped for snacks, for drinks. That is the last time anyone can say for sure they saw all 5 of them together.
After that moment, it's like the thread just snaps. They're gone. And the first piece of evidence that turns up days later, it just makes everything 100 times more confusing.
It really does.
Which brings us to that first huge logistical failure. The car. The Montego.
Madruga's car. His prized possession, everyone said. And it's found several days later, but not on the road home. It's on this remote, snowy, high-mountain dirt road in Plumas National Forest.
Miles and miles off their route.
And this is where the logic just begins to completely break down. The car is found about 20 miles away from where their bodies would eventually be discovered.
It's stuck in a bit of snow, right?
A light snowpack. But here's the kicker. The investigators confirmed the vehicle was in perfect working order. It wasn't broken down. The engine was fine.
Okay, we need to pause on that because it's just so absurd. Sources said the car could easily have been pushed out.
Easily. By 5 able-bodied men.
Right. So if you're stuck and you're desperate to get home for this big game, what's the logical thing to do?
You push the car. It's a brief effort. You combine your strength, and you get back on the road to safety.
Instead, they walk away from shelter in freezing conditions. That suggests a level of panic or some kind of external pressure that just doesn't make sense.
Exactly. The risk versus reward is it's all wrong. A small push versus a 20-mile hike up a mountain in the dead of winter. Their choice almost screams that they were fleeing something or were forced away from the car.
And this makes me wonder about the initial investigation. Did they see a working, abandoned car and immediately think foul play? Or did they just think, oh, they got stuck?
It seems like they treated it as the latter, at least at first. And that failure to grasp the absurdity of that choice, well, it sets the stage for the next layer of confusion.
The witness, Joseph Shones.
Yeah, Shones. He was a motorist who, by a terrible coincidence, had a mild heart attack right near where the Montego was abandoned.
So he was stuck there all night in his car.
He was. And he claims that at 2 different times, around 11:30 p.m. and then again at 3:30 in the morning, he saw things.
What kind of thing?
He said he saw headlights. He saw the outlines of a group of men, and this is the part that always stands out. A woman holding a baby.
A woman with a baby. Out there.
I know. And then it gets even more chilling. He said he called out for help, and one of the figures shone a flashlight right into his car, and then they all just retreated. The lights went out. The voices stopped.
On the surface, that sounds like a sinister encounter, like the men ran into someone else on that road.
It does. But we have to be so critical here. You have to remember the medical context.
Is that a heart attack?
Exactly. A cardiac event in the bitter cold can lead to oxygen deprivation to the brain. And forensic psychology tells us this can cause amnesia, or something called confabulation.
What's confabulation?
It's essentially the creation of false memories. Detailed, vivid, but completely false memories that the brain creates to fill in gaps.
And Shones himself even admitted later his memory wasn't great.
He did. And he also mentioned seeing not just the Montego, but a red pickup truck. A detail that has never, ever been corroborated.
So if we take Shones' testimony with a huge grain of salt, we're left with this massive void, a 4-month gap between them vanishing in February and the snow melting in June.
And that's when the case takes its next terrible turn.
In June, they start finding the bodies. 3 of them, Sterling, Hewitt, and Madruga, are found out in the woods. Sadly, reduced to bones by animals.
But the real focus, the part that turns this whole thing on its head, is the 4th body they find. Ted Weyer.
He's found inside a building, right? A Forest Service trailer.
That's right, a shelter. And this is the moment the whole investigation becomes this impossible puzzle. Because Ted Weyer had survived.
For how long?
For almost 3 months. He'd been alive inside that trailer for weeks and weeks. And his cause of death was confirmed as starvation.
He starved to death inside a shelter.
Yes. And here is the monumental, just horrifying contradiction. The trailer was full of food. An ample supply of military MREs, canned goods.
And heating materials, right. Everything 1 or more people would need to survive for months.
Everything. And the details inside that cabin, they just defy any rational explanation. Weyer was found covered in 8 dead sheets. Someone had been trying to keep him warm.
And he was incapacitated.
Completely. He had severe frostbite, gangrene in his feet. Walking would have been impossible. And he was found without his shoes.
But wait, if he died of starvation, what about dehydration? You can't survive for months without water.
That's the question that changes everything. The coroner found that dehydration was not the primary cause of death, which means for him to survive that long, someone had to be with him, someone had to be wetting his lips, giving him water, keeping him hydrated.
So someone was there, keeping him alive with water.
But actively letting him starve to death while sitting next to a pantry full of food.
That is just beyond disturbing. It changes this from a tragic accident into something else entirely.
It does. Which leads us, of course, to the 5th man, the one they never found, Gary Matias.
He's the missing piece.
He is. And while they never found his body, they did find his shoes in the woods nearby.
And Ted Weyer was missing his shoes.
Exactly. The strongest theory is that Matias swapped his shoes with Ted's. Because the frostbite had caused Ted's feet to swell so badly, he couldn't wear his own. It suggests Matias was there, caring for him.
So if Matias was the one providing that care, and he was the last to leave, why did he leave? Why walk away from his incapacitated friend with all that food there and not take any supplies to go get help?
And that's where we have to look at the only thing we have that might offer some kind of explanation. Matias' mental state and his history.
We know he was on medication, but he'd missed his dose.
He had, though it takes a few days for it to fully leave your system. But his history, it did include some extremely erratic behavior. He'd assaulted military leaders. He once walked 50 miles without telling a soul where he was going.
So one theory is that his mental state deteriorated, and he sort of took over the group.
That's the control theory, as some call it. The idea is that a combination of his intelligence and his destabilized mental state let him take charge. Maybe he initiated that detour, convinced him to go visit friends somewhere, even though they had the game.
A psychological break that led to one illogical decision after another.
It's one possibility.
Yeah.
But then there are the darker theories, the ones connected to his time in the military.
Which was during the era of the CIA's MKUltra program.
Yes, for anyone who isn't familiar, MKUltra was this secret, often illegal CIA mind control program. They experimented with drugs like LSD on unsuspecting subjects, including military personnel.
Trying to create, what, Manchurian candidates?
Something like that. Influencing behavior, creating triggers. And there's some very suspicious things in Matias' file.
Such as?
Well, he got a medical discharge, despite some really serious misconduct. His sister's fiance claimed that drugs had addled his brain after he got out of the service. And maybe most damning, key military and medical records are just missing.
Well, they're
Gone. So the provocative theory that some sources put forward is, could Matias have been a botched experiment? Could he have been activated by some trigger phrase, maybe something he heard at the basketball game, that sent him down this bizarre path?
It's a terrifying thought, and it's all just compounded by how badly the initial investigation was handled.
It's appalling, really. They didn't establish a proper timeline. They didn't lift a single fingerprint from inside that trailer to confirm who had been there.
And they didn't even check the trailer at first? A known shelter, in the middle of a search for 5 men lost in a snowstorm.
It's a cascade of failures.
So when you step back and look at the whole case, it's just defined by these choices that make no sense. Leaving a car, dying of starvation next to food, the phantom figures Shones saw, it's a void.
The only thing we know for sure is that 4 men died in a terrible way, and a 5th vanished from the face of the earth. The facts we do have, an incapacitated man kept alive with water for weeks but allowed to starve, that demands a better explanation than just they got lost.
So as you, the listener, try to piece this together, what's the final thought we should leave you with?
I think it's this. If these men were capable enough to find that remote trailer 20 miles from their car, which suggests some level of coordination, and 1 man survived inside it for nearly 3 months, what critical piece of context are we missing? Was it a person they met? Was it a sudden catastrophic mental break? Something must have happened that explains why they chose not to use the resources that were right there, inches away, that could have saved their lives. That unresolved question, that's the real enduring riddle of the Yuba County 5.